What's up, everyone? So, I have been trying to make a educational YouTube series, whatever you want to call it, for a while now. And ta-da! Here it is. So I'm actually really excited about this. I had someone comment on an old drum cover video I did about how they want to take lessons with me for free, which unfortunately I can't do, but I've been wanting to do this, so it's kind of the same thing, arguably. We'll see how that one goes. But so this is the very first video. This is going to be basically mostly a vocabulary lesson. We're just going to break down everything, talk about all the parts of the drum set, and do a few basic beats and some nice starter exercises. So let's just jump right in. So we have a bunch of things going on here. This is not a normal drum setup. I think the idea of a normal drum setup, however, is ridiculous, because my favorite thing about music is that do whatever the hell you want. So we're just going to kind of walk through this kit real quick. So first things first, we have our snare drum right here. Sounds like that, as well as several other snare drums right over there. So that's a snare. This is going to be like your backbeat. This is going to make people want to move. Then we have our toms. So we have a rack tom. I only have one. You can have a bajillion. Terry Bozzio has like, I think, 36 chromatically tuned toms, and then a bunch of others. This is our rack tom. It's generally the highest pitched tom. And then we have floor toms. I have two. So this is a 16-inch and an 18-inch. And just with, some moon gels, some dampeners. Sound pretty good. So we can go high to low. So far, covered these four drums. We got snare, rack tom, floor tom, other floor tom. Those are the drums. The last drum I have in this setup, at least, is the kick drum. So that's that. So as we talk about those, we can obviously now move on to the cymbals. I have some strange cymbals here. I really love them. They're not for everyone. I don't recommend getting them to start. But I have two sets of hi-hats here. So these are the hi-hats. These are generally going to be kind of your timekeepers, and you can do a lot with them. They're very, very vocal cymbals, and they're a lot of fun. Then, so main hi-hat, generally you don't see this. This isn't a standard kit setup. So you have your hi-hat, you have your closed sound, your open sound, and then the little chirp, I guess we could call it. So then we have this cymbal right here. This is your ride cymbal. Now, I don't have any crash cymbals, as you can see. They're generally a bit smaller than rides. I think this is 21 inches. Yes, it is. This is the Meinl Byzance transition ride from Mike Johnston. I love that cymbal. It has a lot of voices. So you have a few basic sounds, voices in this cymbal. You have the bell. It will generally be used for like accent patterns as you play through a groove. So like, you have the bow, which is this flat area here. And then you have the crash sound, I guess you could call it, which is where you strike the edge of the cymbal with the shoulder of the stick. Now, if I had other crash cymbals, that's how you would strike those as well. Generally, with the ride, you're going to use the shoulder to crash, and you can use the tip of the stick, play kind of the bow here to get your pattern. And then with your bell, you're going to use the shoulder of the stick as well. So, again, I only have this cymbal, but crash cymbals are going to look just like this, but generally a little smaller. And then you have other types of cymbals too. You have your splash cymbals, effect cymbals. You have bells, which I have some here. Mine are, I think it's a minor third. Yeah. So bells, and then you have effect cymbals. Bells generally fall under effect cymbals, but they're probably one of the most common ones out there. These are my other effect cymbals, and they kind of just give me different sounds. You know, whether it's like a different kind of hi-hat sound, different kind of snare sound, or anything in between, really. And then something that has become really popular is stacks. Everyone nowadays loves stacks. I do too. I used to hate them because I was jaded and young, and I was like, I don't need that. I just need a regular drum set. But they're a lot of fun, and they just give you more colors. So I have one stack here, which is kind of an auxiliary hi-hat. I tried to basically emulate the Crasher hats that Benny Greb put out. And yeah, and I mean, you can stack whatever cymbals you want. I know there was a period of time where the drummer for the Mars Volta, Thomas Pridgeon, he used to have a cymbal stand that just had like 3 or 4 cracked cymbals on it. So, you know, if you crack a cymbal, yeah, it's a bummer. Cost a lot of money. But you can use it as a stack. You can repurpose it. And the fun part at that point is if you're a bit handy, or if you go check out R. David R. over on YouTube, you can figure out a lot of cool uses for all those broken cymbals. So that kind of covers this. I do have this here, which is a sample pad. It's an electronic sample pad. You can, you know, put in whatever samples you want into it. But that's generally it. I don't think you'll see much anything stranger than this on a normal drum set. You know, maybe a gong or like some wind chimes, but these are the basic parts of the drum set and all the different kinds of cymbals and drums we have for the traditional trap kit. So, after that, probably should have started with this one actually, the drumstick. So, the most important part about a drumstick is finding something you like, finding something that feels good in your hand. So if you're just starting out, try everything. I mean, don't go buy every drumstick you find at Guitar Center, but just change it up. You know, if you try something, you think you like it, 6 months down the road, your hand starts to cramp up, maybe think about getting something else. But let's talk about how to hold this thing. There is generally 2 grips we talk about. We talk about matched and traditional grip. Those are the basic ones. So matched grip, you hold like this with the fulcrum of the stick between the thumb and the index finger. And then you wrap all your fingers around it, and you use those to control the bounces. And that is matched grip. And matched grip, both hands hold the stick the same way. Traditional grip, which is seen a lot in jazz, or some of the older drummers that play fusion will use traditional grip. It is actually a bit outdated, but it's a good thing to know. It's a lot of fun. And I think, for me at least, sometimes changing from match to the traditional grip can surprise me. You know, I think a little differently with that physical change. That physical change is this. So instead of holding it here, our fulcrum now rests here in the crease between our thumb and the forefinger. And what you're going to want to do is position the stick at the fulcrum. So if you see people back here, they're probably doing it for a reason. If it's an experienced drummer, it gives you a different sound. But if you're looking for something that's going to give you the most fluidity in your playing, you want to hold it at that fulcrum. And the stick should kind of rest on this part, right where your fingernail meets the rest of your finger. And then you just kind of rest these other fingers on top of it. I'm not going to try and show off with that because I am not very good with traditional grip. But so that's like the quick overview, right? So we've talked about the snares, the toms, the cymbals, the kicks, the hi-hats, the effect cymbals, the electronic things. We've covered this whole drum set. So like let's jump in a little, you know. In most Western music, you will always be clapping on 2 and 4. So that's our backbeat. That's where the snare lands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Actually, I have to put this thing in my face. God forbid. So let me rewind a little bit there. So most music that we listen to these days is in 4/4 time signature. That means you count 4 beats. So backbeat lands on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Really basic rock groove is going to be to take that, your snare on 2 and 4. Let's play it with my left hand because that's, you know, if you're right-handed, that's what you're probably going to be doing. So you're going to play that backbeat on 2 and 4, and then you're going to play the bass drum on 1 and 3. So it's pretty simple. You just start like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The last step to that, you know, basic rock beat, if you listen to AC/DC, it's, you know, 3/4 of their catalog. But the last step to that is to add the hi-hat. Now, we're going to talk about note values here for a second. So that pulse, before we add the hi-hat, that pulse in between the bass drum and the snare drum is a quarter note pulse. So when you say quarter note, 4, right? 4 quarters make $1. 4 quarter notes make a measure. A measure is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 measure of music, 1 measure of playing drums. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The last step to this basic rock groove is to add the hi-hat. Now the hi-hat's going to be playing 1/8 notes. So we have 4 quarter notes in 1 measure. We can then assume we have 8 1/8 notes in a measure. So that means you're going to be playing a hi-hat twice when you hit the bass drum, when you hit the snare drum. So it's going to be going twice as fast as that quarter note pulse. So it's going to sound something like this. It's generally, especially when I have to hold a microphone, easier to demonstrate. Let's check this out. We got to click at 70 BPM. So there is our basic rock groove. So that's our basic rock groove, right? Now you can change this. You can play the ride instead of the hi-hat. You can play, if you have a cymbal stack, play that instead of your regular hi-hat or whatever. But that's a great place to start. Now, from there, it is my belief that one of the best ways to start, once you've gotten that, is to start moving around your kick drum. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to give you some coordination. It's going to open up a lot more ideas. So say instead of playing just 1 and 3, we play the 1, the 3, and the second eighth note of the 3. So we play 1, snare, 3, and on the kick, 4 on the snare. It's going to sound something like this. Then you can take that idea and just kind of, play with it. Add the bass drum wherever you think. And I think starting with like eighth note improvisation ideas is wonderful. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that. So I'm just going to mess around for a second, do some little eighth note improvisation with the kick drum while keeping my hi-hat and my snare the same. So let's try that. So that's a great basic exercise to start with. Now, the next thing you can do, the next thing we're going to talk about is 16th notes. Now, if we have 4 quarter notes in one measure, 8 eighth notes in one measure, then we have 16th notes. That's a tongue twister. 16 16th notes in one measure. So 16th notes are kind of a brain teaser if you're first starting, because they require a little bit more thinking, especially if you're playing an eighth note pattern on the hi-hat or the ride, because they're going to land in between the eighth notes, right? So if we were to play, let's start with straight 16th notes on the snare drum, it would sound like this. Pretty simple, right? Just a nice single stroke roll, right, left, right, left, right, left. Simple. But when you start to bring this 16th note, the 16th note concept to a drum groove, it really starts to open up possibilities. So instead of just playing eighth notes on the kick, we can now play the subdivisions in between the hi-hats down there as well. So let's keep it a little simple still. We're going to play the first and the fourth 16th note of beat 1 and the first and the fourth 16th note of beat 3. We're going to keep the eighth note hi-hat pattern and the backbeat on 2 and 4. So that means that fourth 16th note is going to land in between the second and third hi-hat, as well as the 6th and 7th. It's going to sound like this. Again, slowly, 70 BPM. Now that we've talked about eighth notes, quarter notes, 16th notes, there's a really great exercise I want to end this with, and it's from Gary Chafee. It's called the Fatbacks. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to take our quarter note pulse on our bass drum, and we're going to play every quarter note downbeat. We're going to play 1, 2, 3, 4. So, but don't stop the hi-hat or the snare, right? And then we're going to shift that 1/16th note until we come back around to the downbeat. So let's just play through that real quick, again at 70 BPM. Minus my little hiccup, that's the general idea. And then after that, we're going to start taking 2-note groupings on the bass drum and running the same exercise. So you're going to start with the first 2 16th notes. So 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E. And then after you practice that for a while, you're going to shift them to the second and third 16th notes, again to the third and fourth, and then again to the first and fourth. So let's just play through that again, nice and slow. Now, now that you've done that much, the thing you can do here that is a bit unlike the single note groupings that we did at the beginning of this is to play the first and third 16th notes, or the 8th notes, and then the second and fourth, right? So that's going to sound like this. So that would be the last section of the 2-note groupings. And then after that, you do the exact same thing with 3-note groupings. So you play the first 3 of every quarter note, the last 3 of every quarter note, the first, third, and fourth. Let me not do that one. The first, third, and fourth, the first, second, and fourth. And that's it. And then you're going to play all four and then none. So let's run through that before I start doing more rude hand gestures. Now, obviously, any of those patterns can be applied to anything. And then we'll talk about triplets next time, because that's a bit different. But that is, to me, the best starting exercise that's out there. You know, it really gives you a grasp of all the different note values when you're talking about quarter, eighth, 16th notes, and it really starts to let you work on your independence. What you can do after that is you can start taking those 1, 2, 3, and 4 note groupings and applying them to the hi-hat or the ride, whichever one you're keeping time with using your right hand. And then you create that as an ostinato. An ostinato is just a repeated pattern, such as just eighth notes. I hope you enjoyed this. I've tried to film this about 1,000 times, and this time it's going to stick. But thank you so much. I really appreciate anyone that watches this. And if there's anything you want to learn about, please leave it in the comments down below. Smash the subscribe button, and I will see you next week. Peace.